How do you stop someone who feels no pain? That's the question that Nathan's enemies are going to be asking themselves. Novocaine is the new action comedy starring Jack Quaid, Amber Midthunder, Ray Nicholson, and Jacob Batalon. Now in the spoiler-free review, I'm going to be talking about the highs of this movie, the lows of this movie, and everything in between. And if you've already seen Novocaine, let me know your thoughts on it down in the comments. So is Novocaine a knockout or just another forgettable action comedy? Let's talk about it. Novocaine's a movie about this guy named Nathan. He's an assistant manager at a bank in San Diego, and the thing about Nathan is that he can't feel pain. Anything that happens to him, he can't feel. He can't even eat solid foods because he might bite his tongue off. And this is a real condition, you can look it up. Anyway, he has an employee at his bank who he becomes infatuated with. They start going on dates, and then one day she gets kidnapped in a bank heist. So now it's up to him to go and get her back. Now, when I first saw the trailer for Novocaine, I thought it looked pretty okay. It looked like a fun idea that the guy can't feel pain, but it did remind me of a typical generic action comedy movie, and I am glad to say that the movie does a lot more than just being the average generic type of action comedy. Jack Quaid is having so much fun in this movie, you can just tell. He starts off as this hopeless romantic. He wants someone in his life, but he's isolated himself because of his condition. And you can just see him start to open up, but it's the writing of his character that really gets you to want him to win. But it's Jack Quaid's performance that really drives it and makes you really root for him to get Sherry back. Jack Quaid is becoming my new Jake Gyllenhaal, and I know that's weird and doesn't make sense, but let me explain. Do you have an actor or an actress that every time you watch them in a movie, the movies just hit for you? You don't know why, but you just tend to like their movies more times than not. That's Jake Gyllenhaal for me. But I was watching Novocaine, and I thought to myself, Jack Quaid, he has a lot of good projects. First, he was in Scream 5, and then he voices Superman in My Adventures with Superman. He's in The Boys, and then he was in Companion earlier this year, which is one of my favorite movies of 2025. That movie rocks. And now he's in Novocaine. So that's what I'm talking about. Almost every movie that I've seen this guy in has hit for me. Let me know who that is for you down in the comments. Now, Amber Midthunder and Jack Quaid have such good chemistry in Novocaine. That's something that really stuck out to me right from the jump. The way that they interact, the way that they talk to each other. I know it's a movie, I know it's in the script and everything, but you can just tell when two actors are able to come together and they can just work off of each other so well. You've seen it 1,000 times. This is a great example of that. And Amber Midthunder, who plays Sherry, does a good job on her own, but like I said, when she plays off of Nathan, who's played by Jack Quaid, they both are at their best. And I'm glad that I was able to see her after Prey, because in Prey, she was this badass warrior. She really made a name for herself in that. And she has a few scenes in Novocaine that does the same thing. So it's just great to see her back on the screen. And then we have Ray Nicholson, who plays the villain Simon. He's a little bit crazy. He's a little bit unhinged, and he's a little bit too generic for me. I wish that we got to see more of him on the screen, but not playing this one-note villain that we've all seen before, because when he is on screen with his facial expressions and the way that he acts, he has potential, but the writing just wasn't quite there to really flesh out that character. And then we have the funny friend Roscoe, who's played by Jacob Batalon, and while I like the scenes that he was in, the problem with his character is that every line, it felt like, was a joke, and some of them were really funny, and I liked how he portrayed that character and how he acted, but the jokes just would not stop, and it felt a little bit forced, especially towards the end. We get it, he's the funny comedic relief, but enough's enough. And the pacing in this movie is really good. It starts off pretty slow as far as establishing Nathan and Sherry's relationship, and it really makes you like that dynamic. And then once the bank robbery happens, it is just off to the races. It's non-stop action, and I thought they did a great job of establishing that so you care about why we're in the action, but then it also gives you the awesome action. The movie takes this crazy idea that this guy can feel no pain and just goes full in with it. The injuries that he sustains in this movie are so creative. There's a scene, and it's in the trailer, I'm not gonna spoil anything that's not in the trailer. He's going to stick his hand in a deep fryer to grab a gun. His hand is destroyed at that point. There's a scene where he starts slamming the ground with his fist because there's glass on the ground, so now his hands are full of glass for fighting. There's tons more. There's tons more than that. So the trailer doesn't show everything that he's gonna go through, and it's just so creative what they can do. There's a scene, and once again, not spoiling anything, there's a scene where he goes into a house that's just full of booby traps. Just gonna leave that there. It's funny, it's brutal, and it's very creative with what they do. I was really impressed with that. And there's another scene in the movie where he's being tortured, and the way that he sounds, because he has to act like it hurts him, hilarious. One of the highlights of the movie. Love that scene.
Oh, no, stop it. Oh, wow, that hurt. That one hurt the most.
But about 3/4 of the way through, I started to realize something. Going into that third act, it started to show the generic action comedy that I thought this movie was going to set itself apart from. Unfortunately, it does fall victim to something that we've seen plenty of times before. An example is last year's The Fall Guy. That movie in particular starts off very different, very fun and unique, but as it gets closer to the finish line, you can already tell what's gonna happen, where these characters are gonna go, and how it's all gonna play out because you've seen that roadmap happen in all the other action comedies, unfortunately. And no hate on The Fall Guy, I love that movie, and as far as Novocaine goes, I really enjoyed myself with this one as well. But it just got so corny towards the end because you can tell what's about to happen, and then the way that everyone started interacting with each other, especially the law enforcement, the detectives, my God, that is not how this would have played out. So it kind of brought me out of the movie, which is wild considering how crazy and how insane the stunts and what was going on. I was like, that guy should have been dead a long time ago. That didn't drag me out of the movie. What took me out of it was how the real world scenarios would have played out. And I know that's just a nitpick, and this isn't a movie where you want to analyze that. You just turn your mind off and have a good time. I understand that. But that is something, for me personally, that drew me out of the movie, and I wish the last act kind of went in a different way. Don't know what that would have been. I'm no writer, but I just wish it played out a different way. Overall though, Novocaine was a really fun time. It starts off fun, it starts off fast, it had me smiling from start to finish, and the injuries are the standout of this movie. They're next level creative, and Jack Quaid sells it, whether he's getting thrown around like a rag doll or he's interacting with Amber's character. I loved all of that. Now the last act started to really show that generic traits that you typically see in action comedies, but overall, I had a blast watching this, and it's a movie that I would watch again. Definitely recommend this one. Now go support this mid-budget action movie because you know what? You're gonna enjoy yourself. And if you're interested in Jack Quaid's other movie that came out this year, Companion, you can check out my review right here. But until the next video, everybody, see you later.